World War I devastated Europe, but it also led to the birth of new financial structures and global trade practices. The Rothschilds recognized the changing tides and adapted swiftly. They invested in post-war reconstruction projects, providing loans to nations that were rebuilding their economies. Their long-standing expertise in international finance allowed them to facilitate cross-border deals that helped stabilize the fragile European economies. However, they also shifted their attention to the United States, which had emerged from the war relatively unscathed and economically stronger than ever. The Rothschilds established deeper partnerships with American banks and expanded their investments in the U.S. stock market, real estate, and burgeoning industries such as oil and automobiles. In Germany, the Frankfurt branch of the Rothschild family faced dire circumstances. The Treaty of Versailles had imposed harsh reparations on Germany, leading to economic turmoil and widespread resentment. The Weimar Republic, which succeeded the German Empire, struggled to stabilize the country. The Rothschilds, though still respected for their financial expertise, had a difficult time navigating the volatile German market. The Frankfurt branch shifted focus to industries that were less affected by the currency instability, such as chemical manufacturing, where companies like IG Farben were rising to prominence. However, the political instability and the growing anti-Semitism in Germany were troubling signs. The Rothschilds understood that they might soon have to withdraw their investments from a country they had called home for generations. The Paris branch, meanwhile, faced a different set of challenges as France rebuilt itself post-war. The Rothschilds expanded their investments in French industries, particularly in steel, coal, and transportation. These sectors were essential for Europe's rebuilding process, and the Rothschilds' involvement helped accelerate France's recovery. Yet, like their counterparts in Germany, they could not ignore the rise of extremist ideologies. Anti-Semitic rhetoric was rampant, and the Rothschilds, as prominent Jewish financiers, were frequent targets. The family remained resilient, investing in charitable works and public institutions to counter negative perceptions. As the world entered the 1930s, the global economic landscape took another devastating hit with the onset of the Great Depression. The collapse of the U.S. stock market sent shockwaves through the global economy, and the Rothschilds faced significant losses, particularly in their American investments. However, their strategy of diversification allowed them to weather the crisis better than most. In London, the Rothschilds continued to support the British government, providing loans to keep crucial infrastructure projects afloat.
In Paris, they redirected funds to essential industries like food production and public utilities, helping maintain stability in France's struggling economy. Then, in 1939, the world was plunged into another devastating conflict, World War II. This war would be far more destructive than the first, and it would challenge the Rothschild family in ways they had never imagined. In Nazi-occupied Europe, Jewish businesses and assets were confiscated, and the Rothschilds were not spared. The family members in France and Austria faced expropriation, with their assets seized by the Nazi regime. Several Rothschilds were forced to flee or go into hiding, and some family members were imprisoned in concentration camps. For the Rothschilds, survival became the top priority. The London branch became the family's stronghold during this dark period. As the only Rothschild bank in an allied country, they supported Britain's war effort by financing military supplies and infrastructure. They worked closely with the British government, and their financial networks proved invaluable in securing resources and intelligence for the Allies. The Rothschilds' extensive network allowed them to discreetly assist family members trapped in occupied territories, helping to arrange safe passage for some and providing financial support to those who could not escape. When the war finally ended in 1945, Europe was left in ruins, and the Rothschilds faced a monumental task of rebuilding their legacy. The family's assets in Germany and Austria were mostly gone, seized by the Nazis, and many of their holdings in France were severely diminished. However, the Rothschilds' resilience once again shone through. In the post-war years, they focused on reclaiming lost assets, rebuilding their banks, and reinvesting in Europe's recovery, they also expanded their interest in the United States and other parts of the world, recognizing that the old European order was giving way to a new era dominated by the US and emerging global markets. The Rothschild story of survival and reinvention in the face of adversity solidified their reputation not only as financiers, but as a family with an almost unmatched ability to adapt. They had navigated revolutions, wars, economic crashes, and the rise of extremist ideologies, emerging each time with a renewed focus and vision. Their experiences in the world wars taught them the importance of resilience, discretion, and adaptability in a world that could change in an instant. The Rothschilds had not merely endured the storms of the 20th century, they had learned to anticipate and prepare for them, a skill that would ensure their legacy well into the future.
As the dust settled and a new world order took shape, the Rothschilds stood as one of the few enduring family dynasties in the world of finance. But with the advent of the Cold War, the family would face a new set of challenges as the political and economic landscape shifted yet again. For the Rothschilds, the next phase would mean balancing old traditions with new opportunities, adapting to the rapid globalization of economies, and finding their place in a world where power and influence were now spread across continents. Their legacy, built on centuries of resilience and adaptation, was far from over. The Rothschild family's influence spread like an intricate web across Europe and, eventually, the entire world. With each new generation, they expanded their reach, adapting to the changing world while remaining a constant force in finance, industry, and politics. They understood early on that wealth alone couldn't sustain their power. To secure their dynasty, they sought control over vital industries, built alliances with influential figures, and positioned themselves strategically at the crossroads of global trade and economic decision-making. In the 19th century, the Rothschilds began investing in industries beyond banking. They saw the promise of new technologies, railways, coal, and steel, and seized opportunities to fund massive infrastructure projects across Europe. Railroads, in particular, became one of their most profitable ventures. As Europe industrialized, these railways fueled trade and development, but they also acted as tools of influence. By financing and owning significant shares in railroad companies, the Rothschilds could impact decisions affecting entire regions. At the same time, the family strengthened political connections. They lent money to monarchs, governments, and influential leaders, ensuring that debts tied these figures to Rothschild interests. Monarchs and political leaders across Europe found themselves reliant on Rothschild capital to fund wars, infrastructure, and even government operations. This influence wasn't limited to Europe. The Rothschilds also had a hand in financing projects and political figures in places as far away as Egypt, South America, and the United States. Their strategy was clear: control industries that nations relied on and align themselves with the powerful and influential. This approach created a cycle that perpetuated their influence. Leaders sought their financial support, which in turn kept the Rothschilds indispensable in political and economic spheres. The family became known not just for their wealth, but for their unique ability to shape policies, economies, and, by extension, history itself. As the 20th century approached, new opportunities emerged with the rise of oil and telecommunications. The Rothschilds, always ahead of the curve, diversified their interests again, this time into oil fields and telephone companies. By holding interests in these new industries, they remained at the forefront of world-changing innovations. This diversification also ensured that no matter which way the economy turned, they were positioned to profit and influence the direction of change.
The Rothschild story is more than just one of accumulating wealth. It's a tale of vision, strategy, and adaptability. Their ability to navigate the shifting tides of history allowed them to remain influential for centuries, casting a long shadow over global affairs. Each generation was taught to protect and grow the legacy, ensuring that the Rothschild name would continue to be synonymous with power, influence, and strategic brilliance. Their legacy endures today, woven into the fabric of industries, institutions, and markets worldwide, a testament to the power of influence and the skillful use of wealth to shape history. As the 20th century progressed, the Rothschild dynasty adapted to an era where direct influence was less visible, but their presence remained undeniable. The family's approach became more subtle, blending into the mechanisms of international finance, policymaking, and investment. While the days of open alliances with monarchs and politicians were fading, they found new ways to exert influence. The Rothschilds embraced behind-the-scenes roles, weaving their power quietly but effectively into a complex global network that operated beyond the public eye. One of the primary tools they leveraged was private banking. By the early 20th century, they had become major players in the private banking sector, catering to the world's elite. Through these private banks, the Rothschilds gained unparalleled insights into the finances of influential individuals, corporations, and governments. This knowledge granted them an edge, allowing them to anticipate trends, understand vulnerabilities, and position themselves strategically. The Rothschilds also shifted their focus to establishing alliances with other powerful families and financiers. By forming these discrete but powerful alliances, they ensured they could respond collectively to global events and challenges. Their collaboration with other financial giants, like the Rockefellers in the US, reinforced their influence across the Atlantic, creating an even broader sphere of power. These alliances weren't just financial, they were political as well. In an age when world wars and revolutions reshaped nations, the Rothschilds used their network to maintain stability and, when needed, to protect their interests. World War I and World War II tested their resilience. Both wars brought chaos to Europe, but the Rothschilds adapted quickly. In the interwar period, they supported rebuilding efforts, capitalizing on the need for financial support. During World War II, however, they faced direct threats, especially in France, where parts of the Rothschild estate were seized. Despite this, the family used their connections and foresight to protect and preserve their assets, transferring funds and operations to safer territories, especially in the US and the UK. Following the wars, the world shifted toward an era of international cooperation and organizations like the United Nations and the International Monetary Fund (IMF). The Rothschilds were quick to see the potential of these institutions and, indirectly, positioned themselves to influence global policymaking. They remained connected to major financial institutions and provided advisory roles to governments, reinforcing their place within the New World Order.
As globalization accelerated, so did the Rothschild strategists. They invested heavily in emerging markets, spotting opportunities in Asia, Latin America, and Africa. Their expertise in infrastructure development, acquired during the European railway era, proved invaluable. Once again, the Rothschilds supported projects that would shape these regions' economies, from mining to banking to communication networks. Their investments were not just about profit, but about securing influence over economies that were becoming increasingly interconnected. By the late 20th century, the Rothschilds had achieved a paradoxical blend of discretion and omnipresence. Their influence was felt in international finance, yet they had become one of the most private and mysterious families of the elite. Unlike the early years when they held a visible role in European courts and government halls, they now operated in the background, using influence networks that spanned the world but stayed out of public focus. This shift wasn't by accident, it was a calculated response to the changing nature of power. As media and public scrutiny grew, the Rothschilds recognized the benefits of a low profile. By doing so, they ensured that their family's influence would persist even as they stayed out of the headlines. The legacy of the Rothschilds at the end of the 20th century was one of resilience, adaptability, and foresight. They had survived wars, revolutions, economic shifts, and a century marked by unprecedented change. Their ability to evolve and reposition themselves to remain relevant in a world where power was becoming more diffuse was a testament to their enduring strategic brilliance.
In the modern age, the Rothschild name carries both reverence and mystique. Their past achievements and influence have fueled numerous myths and conspiracy theories, often portraying them as the architects of world events. While these theories exaggerate and distort their actual role, they underscore the family's near-mythical status. The Rothschilds themselves have remained mostly silent on these speculations, opting to let their legacy speak through their continued success. As globalization brought new challenges, the Rothschilds adjusted their approach once again. They focused on consolidating their operations, aligning themselves with other elite families and investing in industries that could weather the volatility of the 21st century. Although they may not exert the same direct influence as in previous centuries, they have found new ways to remain relevant in today's interconnected world. Their legacy today is preserved not only in their wealth but in the institutions and industries they helped shape. While they might no longer be visibly steering world affairs, the foundations they built continue to influence economies, markets, and policies globally. In some ways, the Rothschilds have become less of a family and more of a symbol or representation of power, influence, and the impact of strategic foresight. Through wars, upheavals, and revolutions, the Rothschild family adapted, survived, and thrived, creating an empire whose reach extended far beyond its origins. Their journey from a modest banking operation in Frankfurt to a global dynasty is not merely a story of wealth, but one of influence and resilience in the face of history's relentless tides.
In today's world, the Rothschild legacy endures in ways that are both visible and veiled, demonstrating a remarkable adaptation to the challenges and changes of the 21st century. The family is no longer at the center of global financial power in the overt way it once was, but its impact still resonates through its investments, its institutions, and the mythos that surrounds the name. The Rothschilds have become a symbol of enduring influence, representing a lineage that successfully navigated the most turbulent periods of history, from the French Revolution to 2 world wars and into the digital age. Today, the Rothschilds focus on private banking, asset management, and investments that touch nearly every corner of the world economy. The Rothschild & Co. firm, a leading global financial advisory group, operates discreetly yet powerfully, advising multinational corporations, governments, and family offices on mergers, acquisitions, and wealth management. By remaining behind the scenes, they continue to exert influence without attracting the kind of attention they did in previous centuries, staying true to their tradition of quiet power. This shift to private influence has been intentional. In an era of media transparency and public accountability, the Rothschilds understand the importance of maintaining a low profile. Unlike the visible financiers of the 19th and early 20th centuries, today's Rothschild family members prefer to operate within established structures of finance and policy, consulting with world leaders and corporations rather than holding overt power. This subtle influence reflects a strategic awareness of the modern world's complexities, where visible wealth and power can attract scrutiny, critique, and public pressure. In the 21st century, the Rothschilds have also diversified into philanthropy and environmental initiatives, reflecting the concerns of modern high-net-worth families. Their philanthropic ventures are numerous and focus on a range of causes, from educational projects and cultural preservation to medical research and environmental sustainability. By investing in these areas, they not only contribute to global betterment but also build goodwill and solidify their legacy as contributors to human progress. Philanthropy serves as another dimension of their influence, one that aligns them with a modern elite concerned about climate change, social justice, and global inequality. Through these philanthropic efforts, the Rothschilds have managed to shape their public image, countering the conspiratorial narratives that have arisen around their family name over the years. This shift is emblematic of their adaptability, demonstrating an understanding that the family's legacy would be better served by emphasizing contributions to society rather than wealth accumulation alone.
Subscribe now to dive deeper into the fascinating world of hidden power, influence, and untold stories shaping our world today. By joining our community, you'll stay connected to engaging content that sheds light on impactful families, industries, and secrets that drive history and modern life. Don't miss out on our latest videos, in-depth explorations, and insights designed to challenge your understanding of the world's most powerful players. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications to keep discovering, questioning, and uncovering the stories that matter. Subscribe today and be a part of our journey.